If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining us on our Real Conversations with
Sheeda and Nikki.
Yes, so this is episode 2 of our podcast, and this podcast will be dedicated to Black History Month. But before we get into Black History Month, I do want to thank all of our listeners, all of our supporters for the positive feedback and the positive messages on Facebook and just personal texts that we've received in regards to our first podcast. So I just want to say thank you to everyone.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Continue to like, comment, and share so that others can be inspired as well.
Yeah. So for this podcast, some of the topics that we're going to be talking about is how Black History Month came about. We're going to talk about 2 women pioneers that have really paved the way for the African American community. And then we're just going to talk about a little bit of our own personal experiences of being Black women in America today during the Black Lives Movement.
So we often talk about Black History Month, but we never really think about how it got founded. So I kind of wanted to find out myself, how did this get started? Mm-hmm. So upon doing research, I found out that President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month in 1976. Mm-hmm. That was really fascinating to me because this was actually a year before that I was born. Mm. So I was just like, wow, like after all that we've been through, it was only recognized in 1976.
Right.
And he just stated that he had recognized this month because he wanted to honor the neglected accomplishments that Black Americans had throughout history. Also, upon doing some research, I found out that there was a Harvard historian, Carter G. Woodson, and he originally had put in for Black History Week in 1915. The one that got it started, and Gerald Ford actually did the Black History Month. So looking at history, Lincoln was the one that signed the Emancipation Proclamation in January 1st, 1863, and he freed the slaves. Mm-hmm. However, the slaves did not know that they were free until 1865. So technically, that was 113 years later that we had Black History Month in 1976, which is just really astounding to me that we had to wait 113 years later to actually get some type of recognition.
Mm-hmm. And then I also wanted to add too that, you know, the country initially recognized it just started off as like Negro History Week. It actually started off as a week. But with the influence of the Civil Rights Movement and Carter G. Woodson, the President Gerald Ford, he recognized it for the country, and it became Black History Month in 1976. So it actually started off as a week for a while before it became an actual month. But yeah, like Nicole said, this was just recognized in 1976. So that wasn't even that long ago. And we endured slavery, Jim Crow laws, all of that before Black History Month was even acknowledged. So we really went through a lot. We endured a lot as Black people before really being acknowledged
Yeah, and it's really sad when I think about just my parents. They went so many years without even getting that recognition. Like, luckily, I was born after, so that, we do get a chance to learn about Black History Month, all the individuals that contributed to where we are today and help us along the way. But, my parents didn't get a chance to experience those things that we have today.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. I think everybody in that Black household, they probably had their own way of celebrating their history and their ancestors. I just think that it wasn't like globally recognized.
yeah.
And now it is,
Mhm.
and we're able to have this podcast and talk about that.
Exactly. So let's kind of talk about these individuals that we have founded. I think that it's great that we get a chance to recognize these individuals just so that this can play a part of our history and kind of let us know about these individuals and how they've paved the way and are continuing to pave the way, as far as the individual that I'm going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And her name is Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett. She's a 34-year-old doctor. She attended the University of Maryland in Baltimore. I chose her to talk about because she's actually one of the contributors to help making the COVID-19 vaccine with Moderna. The vaccine had, at that point, probably it rolled out about 10 months ago. She's someone that I feel is inspirational because it's not very talked about, as far as anyway, with Black individuals founding different inventions, even so. But just with her coming out with this vaccine that can save a lot of lives, she's definitely someone that should be recognized.
Yeah.
I did read that she's a part of a scholar that was Maroff Scholar, and it's an aggressive program that mentors minorities and women in science. So, yeah. What I did learn about the vaccine that I didn't know is the vaccine, she stated, teaches the body how to fend off the virus. It teaches the body how to look for the virus by basically showing the body the spike proteins of the virus. So that way it can fight against it. And I was like, wow, like I didn't know actually how the vaccine really works. I'm not saying that I know all the ins and outs of it.
Right.
But I did find it astonishing, like, okay, because I don't know too much about vaccines, I gotta be honest. So when I found out kind of how this works, that she's a Black woman in history, it was great. And even Dr. Fauci has stated the vaccine that you're going to be taking was developed by an African American woman. And that is just a fact. So I like the fact.
That's what he said?
That's what he said.
All right now, Dr. Fauci.
Yes. So
give recognition where it is due.
Yes. So I love that. So she's the person that I had chose to talk about for Black history. And to me, this is just the start of what she has paved the way for. When I think about her, she's somebody that reminds me that can possibly be that figure that was on the movie like Hidden Figures, those African Americans, women that weren't really fully recognized. So to me, she's up there with those women. Yeah.
And not only that, she looks like us.
Yes.
She looks like my daughter. She looks like us, which makes it so relatable, and we're able to connect with that. Like we can show our children like this, scientist, she contributes to, to the pandemic. So, it's great to see more and more people that look like us on TV that's doing life-changing things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So who's your person that you'd like to talk about, Sheeda?
So I chose Pauli Murray. Pauli Murray is a activist. She was an activist. She was a legal theorist. She was a priest, a poet, a writer, and just so many thing. She was really like an unsung hero, pioneer for the Black community and for gender rights. So Pauli Murray, she was born Anna Pauline Murray on November 20th in 1910. She actually taught herself how to read by the age of 5. And then when she graduated from school, she actually was the top of her class. She was the editor-in-chief of the school newspaper, class secretary. So she really began, really from humble beginnings. And she really proved herself, at a very young age, how smart she was. But when she was young, she lost her parents at a very young age. She moved to North Carolina with her aunt, and her aunt name was Pauline. She was named after her aunt. So, her parents died at a young age, and then she eventually moved in with her aunt in North Carolina. So Pauline, she was really ahead of her time. Since her parents had died at a young age, she was really exposed to like trauma, death, social injustice at a very young age. And even 20 years before the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama, she actually was arrested for refusing to move to the back of the bus in Richmond, Virginia. So this was actually 20 years or about 20 years before the Rosa Parks and the bus boycott, in Montgomery, Alabama. So she was making changes in her community way before the civil rights movement had even came about. So she really was ahead of her time. She was really making changes in the world that really affect us how we live now, and influence us now in a positive way. But, Pauli, she organized sit-ins to successfully desegregate restaurants in Washington, D.C. And then when the civil rights movement was, starting to evolve, she was heavily involved in the civil rights movement. And in 1941, she actually enrolled in law school at Howard University. Murray, she graduated at the top of her law school class from Howard University. And even while she was at Howard University, she experienced women oppression. She was actually rejected. She actually applied to go to Harvard Law School, but she was actually rejected because of her gender. Because at that time, Harvard was a male-only university at the time, so she was rejected. And so she went on to Berkeley School of Law and got her Master's of Law degree. So she was very educated. She really paved the way for, a lot of women.
Yeah. I had never heard of her actually till you were talking about her. Yeah. So she's very inspiring for Black individuals and women especially.
Yeah.
And I like her story because she didn't give up.
Yeah.
She just kept going, even though she was hitting those barriers. And, we got to think about ourselves. It makes me think, like, what's our excuse when we want to give up?
That's the same thing I was thinking.
We don't have it nearly as hard as the individuals back in the day.
Right.
And, it's inspiring. So when we do feel like we want to give up, we got to think about our ancestors.
Yeah, and the people that
came the way.
Yeah. That is so true. Pauli had a large influence on the Brown versus Board of Education with Supreme Court Judge Thurgood Marshall. Pauli actually was the one that actually did the research, and it was based on Pauli's law notes that actually was the foundation of that case, making segregation in public schools unconstitutional. So Pauli was a big influence in the Brown versus Board of Education. And she also was a big influence on the Reed versus Reed case as well. With the Reed versus Reed case, she actually included equal protection clause in the 14th Amendment, recognizing all genders as equal. So Pauli really was a push for that, to recognize that all genders is equal. No man or no woman is, above each other, that we're all equal. So I thought that was interesting that she was such a big influence. I feel like people don't know that she was involved in the Brown versus Board of Education, or, the 14th Amendment, which recognized all genders as equal. So I feel like she was really ahead of her time, and I feel like her legacy had outlasted her, and she really influenced the community and the laws that we have today.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you're saying that this was 20 years prior, when she did the boycott on the bus, and we just know about Rosa Parks.
Yeah, because we don't learn about Pauli Murray in like history books.
Yeah.
So it was always, Rosa Parks, and Rosa Parks is, a pioneer as well. But there was, also people before Rosa Parks, that was paved the way for Rosa Parks.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was interesting just learning about her. And then I also discovered that the Sundance Film Festival is actually doing a documentary on Pauli Murray called My Name is Pauli Murray.
Oh.
So the film festival is from January 28th to February 3rd. So if anyone was interested in that, they could go to the Sundance website to check her out. I definitely want to see that documentary to learn more about her. And then I feel like with her being talked about more and more, I feel like it may be, it may evolve into maybe to her actually being in the history books now more, or like a movie being made about her. Because she really had a overcoming life. She was really an unsung hero, a pioneer, a trailblazer in her time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Sheeda.
Yeah. And the information that I read actually came from the New Yorker magazine. So if anybody wanted to, look more into her background and information, that's where the resources that I read to you today, that's where I got that information from.
Right, exactly. How about we talk a little bit about what's going on in today's days and times, as far as just everything about how it feels to be Black in America right now.
Yeah.
I think that's an important topic to talk about, because maybe there's someone out there listening who can relate to how we feel, or may have went through the same experiences that we went through. So I'm just going to kind of speak about myself really quick, just the different things about how I feel and things that I've experienced. Before, I just felt like I was just going through everyday life. But with this whole race war going on, I just feel like it really kind of opened up my eyes that might have been slightly closed. Of course, I know racism existed. I've never had anyone to be racist to me. And I guess I just didn't think about it too deeply, to be honest, because maybe I've never experienced it. But I'm just going to talk about the different things, how I felt. So this was my first time actually voting.
Because I'm like, Nicole, you need to vote.
Yeah, everyone had been saying that for years, to vote.
Yes, our ancestors died for our right to vote.
Yeah.
So we need to exercise that right whenever we can. I feel like voting is so important.
Yeah, so, I guess, like, maybe I feel that way because voting was not a big thing in my household. Like, I don't ever really remember my parents even going to go vote. So I don't think they did, or if they did, maybe it was before I was born. I don't know, but it's nothing that was ever really talked about. So just speaking of myself, I know that last year my vote actually really counted, and I felt so good about that. I was actually like watching CNN day in, day out. But I gotta be honest, I did early voting, and where I voted at is, primarily, African Americans go and vote there. It was at a courthouse. But I had fears because I felt like, who knows what these racists are going to do? And I felt like, who knows if they're going to come pulling up in their pickup truck and just try to come out and shoot because they were trying to keep, certain people in office. And I was actually really, really fearful. But I still got out there and did it no matter what, because I feel like this, at the end of the day, my God has got me no matter whatever happens. But before I would just think about, like, if you would just go to the polls and vote, you just go and vote. But this year it was just so different to me. It was really just fearful. And I just felt like, even going to work in a primarily African American neighborhood, are those racists going to come and shoot up the neighborhood? It just really got me to thinking about so much, and it's really scary because you don't know, like, who's a racist, who's not a racist. How many people have been hiding that they're a racist for years, and you just don't know. But I feel like now they have the chance to just be like, oh, I'm a racist, I'm gonna showboat this now. And it's really scary because so many people, even at just in traffic stoplight there, these racist people are targeting Black people. No matter what, like, whether they're harassing them verbally, and of course we know that it has gotten physical. So it's just really scary to me to be Black in America right now. And then I'll talk about some of my other fears that I've had and experiences as well. I just kind of want to give you a chance to talk and get your thoughts out about how you feel about being Black in America right now.
As a Black mother, I feel like, it really puts things in a perspective for my children. Because like you all know, I do have 3 kids. And, I do have a son. I have 1 son and 2 daughters. And it just really opened my eyes to really think about the way that I'm raising them and what I'm teaching them, with everything going on and Black boys getting shot and lynched in today's age. It does worry me. I do get fearful at times, but I just use that as, instead of getting angry about it, I use it as ammunition on how to raise my children. I really pour a lot of love into them, and just teaching them to have integrity, teaching them to love each other, just teaching them dignity, and know that they are valuable and they are worthy of being here on this earth just like everyone else, and they shouldn't be treated any less than just because of the color of their skin. But I try to use that anger and turn it into a positive experience for them, because I want them to be citizens in America and not be afraid to go to the store or, go wherever they want to go, because this is supposed to be a free country. So I just try my best to just teach them the right way, so that if they do come across anything, or any type of racial environment, that they know how to handle themselves.
Yeah.
Having a black son, I just try to teach him the best way I can. And then, his father is very involved in his life as well. And I feel like that is very influential to have both parents there influencing, our children in a positive way. So yeah, it's definitely, devastating, but I just, try to teach them the best way I can and pour as much love into them, as I can. Yeah. But I feel like I want to prepare my children, if they were to come across any type of discrimination because of their race or their gender, what to do and how to handle it, and for them to have their own knowledge of history and how history came about, for them to have the knowledge and the power to make the right choices and to kind of expect that may happen in their lifetime. But, have the integrity and the dignity,
Yeah, it is very scary, just myself, because I don't have any kids right now. But just to think about when I do have kids, you want to protect your children from everything as much as you can. But at the same time, you do have to let them know that there are certain things that exist out there. And so many people are losing their kids to people just because of the color of their skin. It's just totally ridiculous, because we're all people and we all have the same blood really that runs through us. And just to kill someone or harm someone just because of the color of their skin. Like I said, I've never experienced any racism myself, but I know that there was an incident when I was in CVS. It was maybe about 2 to 3 months ago. And I was in the back of the store, but I heard a white man yelling at a black cashier. And in my thought process, I was just like, is he racist or is he
I think you told me that. Remember?
Yeah. Yeah, and I was just like, is he a racist? Is he doing this to her just because she's black, or is he just really being a a-hole? So either way, he still shouldn't have talked to her like that. They were very short-handed, which, a lot of things are short-handed now due to the pandemic. So I think she was trying to stock the store but wasn't at the register, and he was yelling because she wasn't up there. But she did kind of put him in his place and let him know that, hey, I'm the only one that's running the register and trying to get the store stocked, I guess, on the front end. So she didn't just sit back and take it, And honestly, I think if I had been up there at the front of the store, I probably would have jumped in it too, because I don't work there. So what was he going to do to me? Hey, we got to look out for each other.
Hello.
Yeah. But also, too, I remember my mother telling me she was coming from Mississippi, which is where she's from. And they had to sit at the back of the bus. And when they were crossing state lines, I guess she had met someone before they crossed the state lines. And when they got to a certain state, they were able to come to the front of the bus. And my mother was just like, oh no, I'm not going up there. And the girl was like, oh, you can come up here now. We're in such and such state. So my mother did say she went up there. But they were getting all type of funny looks because they moved to the front of the bus. And two, just for most people that don't know, my mother is 2 generations behind me. So she has had to endure a whole lot. Just from picking cotton for the sharecroppers. And just with her grandmother, which is my great grandmother, you pick cotton, but you're living basically in this shack And, you know, when my great grandmother wasn't able to pick cotton anymore, she was basically left with nothing. So luckily, my grandmother had moved up to Chicago from there, and then, you know, she came up. But to have worked all your life, put in that hard labor, and then you don't have anything, nothing. And it's very heartbreaking. And I know that my mother just used to say, just like how they just lived in this shack with a tin roof, and that, they were able to eat for free because they killed the animals that were on the land, but, you know, they had nothing really.
I think that's why it's so important that we create generational wealth, so that when we leave this earth, we've left our children with, you know, a home, not just materialistic things, but with a foundation. So where, you know, our lives didn't, we left a legacy for our children. So I think that's why it's so important to just build generational wealth and learn how to build it. So that when we leave, the generations behind us have a solid foundation.
Exactly.
So I think that's why it's so important that I'm glad that you share that story, because it's so important to really know your history and where your ancestors came from and how they lived, because it really gives you that motivation and inspiration to continue to keep going. You know,
exactly.
Not to have an excuse. You know, just to continue to have that hunger and drive to make a change, not only in your life, but, you know, in your children's life, and your children's children, and your nieces and nephews, you know, because it's possible to accomplish your dreams. So
it really is. And, you know, I have told you before, most people don't know that, but this is coming from somebody that wanted to drop out of high school. Because I feel like I struggled so much with just trying to understand, like, how to do this homework. It was really hard, and I just was just like, I'm tired. And even quitting college and my associates probably about 2 or 3 times because I couldn't get the grasp of how to do that math homework. But I completed it, and just to have my master's degree. So you gotta keep going. If anybody, even if you hear from me, you just gotta keep going. Yes. And when you hit that finish line, especially I know with myself, with my degrees, it's something that no one can ever take from me. Like, I actually did that.
Because once you have the knowledge and the education, that's definitely something nobody can take from you. So that's why it's, you know, it is so important to, you know, get an education, whether that is a degree from a college, or if that's you're learning a trade or a skill. That's education as well. So once you have that education and knowledge, no one can really strip you from that. You know, and that's why I feel like it's so important to read. I enforce reading on my kids all the time because it's so important to read. Because if you don't read, then people can hustle you out of, you know, contracts or, you know, anything.
Exactly.
So that's why it's important to read. You know, and I read to my kids all the time so that when they grow up, they'll have a love for reading.
We hope that you've enjoyed this podcast.
We hope you did. We hope you enjoyed the second podcast. So we really want to focus on Black history. This won't be the last time we talk about our ancestors before us. Just because it's Black History Month, we're going to continue to, you know, talk about the individuals that paved the way for us, you know, throughout the year. Because I feel like it needs to be recognized, you know, not only for Black History Month, but throughout the year, every day in our households. So I just want to say thank you all again for the support and for the positivity that we have been getting since we launched our first podcast, and just Thank you all for listening today. I hope this has inspired someone or educated someone in some way. I hope you've taken something from this to where you can use it in your everyday life.
We just want to thank all of our listeners. Continue, like I said, to like, comment, and share. You can find us at Real Conversations 21 on Facebook and also Instagram.
Right.
If you have any entrepreneurs out there that would like to be on the show, you can feel free to email us at realconversations21@gmail.com.
Yes. If you are a small business owner and you feel like you have a story that you will want to share with us on our podcast, please email us at realconversations21@gmail.com or send us a message on Instagram or Facebook. Our Facebook page will be up before this podcast is posted. So if you want to be a part of our journey, please hit us up and let us know, and we'll reach out to you. All right, so this is Real Conversations with Sheeda and
Nikki.